Hey, welcome back to Books and Coffee. Today we are decoding the new and unpredictable shifts in the UGC NET English literature paper that are forcing aspirants to think beyond Shakespeare, Milton, or romantic poetry. So the NET is not the same old syllabus anymore. It's gone cultural, intersectional, contextual, and frankly messy in the best possible way. So the paper now asks what English studies means in a broader world. We can say an expanded cultural studies. Cultural studies has become a real section, not just a name. It's not enough to know Marshall McLuhan or Stuart Hall or Raymond Williams. You really need to know cultural theorists like Fisk, Ian Ang, and feminist cultural critics like Angela McRuby, and how popular media shapes gender and class. And questions test media representations, audience interpretation, cultural practices like magazines or TV shows, and how culture creates, not just reflects. This you can see in the recent December 2025 exam. The questions are there from expanded cultural studies version. Even in 2025 June cycle, the similar questions were asked. They asked regarding cultural studies, especially related to ideology and power, gender in media, and consumer culture. So they are testing how culture constructs identity. So for this, you can use or you can refer Cultural Theory and Popular Culture, an introduction by John Story. So this book explains cultural studies clearly and connects theory to media and everyday culture. So kind of a perfect book for net conceptual clarity. At this point, we need to have a clarity regarding expanded cultural studies. Other than expanded cultural studies, we can see a broader literary theory. So theory used to be feminism, Marxism, post-colonialism, and that was enough. But now, psychoanalysis, deconstruction, post-structuralism, cultural materialism, feminism, and terms like gaze, grand narratives, diegesis are being asked through application-type questions, assertion reason, and matching terms. So you absolutely must know your conceptual vocabulary, not just names. So this isn't just write what Spivak said. It's what does gaze mean, or how does cultural materialism differ from humanism, or match terms with real definitions. So your preparation has to go deeper than memorizing bullets. So you really need a conceptual depth and application-based understanding, and also an assertion reason mastery. Here you can use the help of Peter Barry, and also for an expanded reading, you can use or refer Literary Theory and Introduction by Terry Eagleton for a clear, structured, and exam-friendly understanding. It builds conceptual foundations instead of jumping or dumping jargon. Other than expanded cultural studies and broader literary theory, we have intersectional and marginalized narratives. So the NET is bringing margins to the center. So in 2025 papers, we see questions on Dalit aesthetics and critics like Sharan Kumar Limbali. Also transgender issues in Indian English contexts and intersectional gender narratives. Also a wider spectrum of Indian regional writers and diasporic identities beyond standard canon. So that's a big shift from just study Anita Desai to understand what caste, gender, identity, or body politics mean in theory and text. Now, you really need to know Dalit aesthetics, tribal and indigenous writing, transgender narratives, LGBTQIA plus frameworks, and intersectional feminism. This means you must understand how caste, gender, sexuality, and class operate together in literature. So the NET is clearly aligning with contemporary academic discourse. For this, you can use The Mad Woman in the Attic by Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gobar. It's kind of, you can refer this book, kind of a helpful book for you. So it will help you to gain a foundational feminist criticism that helps build the analytical lens needed for gender-based questions. For deeper intersectional context, supplementary reading of Dalit or queer theory essays is essential. So you can't just depend on The Mad Woman in the Attic. This is for your conceptual understanding and a reference. You really need to look at Dalit and queer theories. Also, please have an eye on whatever is happening regarding this intersectional field. So now we discussed about expanded cultural studies, broader literary theory, and intersectional and marginalized narratives. Other than that, we can see Indian knowledge systems and indigenous theory. In the recent papers or in the recent cycles, we can see Sanskrit literary criticisms like Bhamas, Kavyalankara, and Indian poetics. Also, questions that pull standard literary study into cultural history and knowledge systems. So these areas were not part of all NET patterns. So they are coming from policy shifts like NEP 2020 and indigenization of syllabi. So you can't ignore them now. So you can no longer ignore Sanskrit poetics, rasa theory, Dhwani theory, classical Indian aesthetics, indigenous epistemology, and Devanagari script awareness. So this expansion connects to policy level academic reforms and the growing focus on Indian knowledge traditions. So expect conceptual questions, not random trivia. So for that, you need to read summaries of rasa theory and build some conceptual strength by referring Wikipedia and other helpful sites. Along with Indian knowledge systems and indigenous theory, we can see world, diaspora, and global concepts. So world literatures aren't just a tiny sidebar anymore. Beyond the UK and USA, the NET has asked about post-colonial concepts like imagined communities, flaneur, etc., and indigenous literatures beyond mainstream English, and also global theorists whose frameworks apply across cultures. So the paper demands interdisciplinary thinking like literary theory plus culture practice plus world context. So the NET now demands diaspora studies, post-colonial frameworks, global literary circulation, indigenous world literatures, and transnational identity. So the concepts travel across borders, so should your preparation. So for this, you can again take the help of Wikipedia and Google sites. Along with that, you can refer the Empire Writes Back. This is essential for post-colonial and global literary frameworks, and it connects theory with world context clearly. Also, Commonwealth Literature by William Walsh is really helpful for understanding literature from many countries. So this book is really helpful. So you can refer that. So when I was looking into the recent cycles, what I understood is the pattern feels unpredictable because the discipline itself has expanded. The syllabus hasn't changed dramatically on paper, but its interpretation has expanded. The UGC NET English paper is no longer testing whether you memorized literary history. It is testing whether you understand English studies as culture, power, identity, knowledge systems, and global exchange. As I said earlier, the pattern feels unpredictable because the discipline itself has expanded. If you prepare expansively, the unpredictability becomes manageable. That's the shift and that's the preparation strategy. So, theory is now 30% of your strength. Study big frameworks like feminism, psychoanalysis, post-structuralism, cultural materialism, and focus on terms and their applications. Also, expect caste, gender, trauma, indigenous voices, Indian criticism, and Sanskrit theories. Also know how media, consumer culture, and identity politics are theorized in cultural studies. Also, learn frameworks that travel across literatures beyond national boundaries. So, have a conceptual understanding. Also, the topics like language, linguistics, research aptitude, and reading comprehension still matter. They are still easy scoring sessions, so don't ignore them. So this should be your new strategy, and all the best. In case if you have any doubt, feel free to let me know through your comments. Thank you.